I'm leading my country to break free from the US dollar's control. With China's new payment system, Africa will shape its own economic future.
Where a young leader named Captain Ibrahim Traoré is making history. At just 37, Traoré is the leader of Burkina Faso and one of the youngest heads of state in the world. He's got a bold vision to free Africa from Western control, especially the US dollar, which has dominated global trade for decades. Traoré is teaming up with China, which just unveiled a massive plan to make Africa the first hub for its global payment system. This system is all about boosting the Chinese yuan and challenging the US dollar's grip on the world. Traoré sees this as a golden opportunity for Africa to take charge of its future. Last month, China convinced 53 out of 54 African nations to join a new trade framework, giving their exports 100% tariff-free access to China's huge market. This is a game changer, and Traoré's leadership is helping Africa seize this moment. Stick with me to see how this is reshaping the world. China's plan is massive, and Ibrahim Traoré is helping lead the charge. For the first time ever, a country has united almost an entire continent in a trade partnership. With 53 African nations on board, China is building a powerful alliance, and Traoré's Burkina Faso is at the forefront. This isn't just about selling goods like coffee or minerals, it's about creating a new financial system where African countries can trade without needing the US dollar. Traoré believes this is the key to Africa's economic freedom. The US dollar has controlled global trade for years, but it comes with risks like high fees and Western sanctions. China's cross-border interbank payment system, CIPS, lets African nations trade directly in yuan, skipping the dollar entirely. This move, backed by Traoré's bold vision, is shaking up global trade and putting Africa in the spotlight. Let's dive deeper into Ibrahim Traoré's story. Since taking power in Burkina Faso in 2022, after a military coup, Traoré has become a symbol of hope for Africans who want to break free from Western influence. Inspired by Burkina Faso's revolutionary hero Thomas Sankara, Traoré wants Africa to control its own resources and economy. He sees China's new payment system and trade framework as a way to escape the US dollar's control. Traoré is pushing Burkina Faso to join CIPS and trade in yuan, which could save money and reduce reliance on Western banks. He's also taken big steps like nationalizing Burkina Faso's gold mines and building a gold refinery to keep wealth in the country. These moves are inspiring other African leaders to rethink their financial systems. Traoré's message is clear: Africa can stand tall and build a future where it calls the shots. Traoré isn't just talking about change. He's taking action. He's spoken out against the way Western countries, especially the US, use the dollar to control African economies. For example, many African nations struggle to get dollars for trade, which forces them to rely on Western banks and pay high fees. Traoré has warned that this system keeps Africa dependent and vulnerable. He's also criticized Western sanctions, like those imposed on Russia, which showed how the US can freeze a country's money overnight. Traoré believes China's CIPS offers a way out, giving African nations a fairer way to trade. His leadership is rallying Africans to demand economic independence, and his partnership with China is making it possible. Why is this shift happening? It's all part of a bigger rivalry between China and the US. The US, especially under leaders like Donald Trump, has been unpredictable, slapping high tariffs, taxes on imported goods on countries around the world, including in Africa. Trump's America First policy has largely ignored Africa, offering no meaningful trade deals or support. Traoré has called out this neglect, saying the US doesn't care about Africa's growth. For example, the US has imposed tariffs as high as 30% on South Africa and 50% on Lesotho, making it harder for African countries to sell goods. Meanwhile, China is stepping up with open markets, investments, and a new financial system. Traoré sees China as a partner that respects African nations' right to make their own choices, unlike the US, which often demands political changes in exchange for aid. Let's talk about why the US dollar is a problem for Africa. Most global trade runs through a system called SWIFT, which is controlled by the US and Europe. SWIFT processes international payments, but it's expensive and risky for African countries. If an African business wants to sell goods to Europe, it can't use its local currency. It has to convert to dollars, then euros. This means paying double fees, dealing with delays, and relying on Western banks. Traoré has pointed out that this system puts Africa at a disadvantage. Even worse, SWIFT gives the West power to cut countries off from global trade. In 2022, when Russia was involved in the Ukraine conflict, Western countries froze $300 billion of Russia's money. This sent shockwaves through Africa, showing that the US could do the same to any country it disagrees with. Traoré says this is why Africa needs alternatives like China's CIPS. China's CIPS is a game changer, and Traoré is all in. CIPS is like SWIFT, but it lets countries trade in yuan instead of dollars, saving money and avoiding Western control. Right now, over 4,900 banks in 1,807 countries use CIPS, and African nations are joining fast. In June, South Africa's Standard Bank became the first African bank to enable direct yuan payments with China, bypassing the dollar completely. Traoré wants Burkina Faso to follow suit, seeing CIPS as a way to protect his country from US sanctions and trade barriers. With Africa's economies growing rapidly, CIPS could become a major force in global trade, and Traoré's leadership is helping make Africa a key player in this new financial system. Traoré supports China because it offers a different kind of partnership. Unlike the West, which often treats Africa as a source of raw materials like oil or minerals, China focuses on what African countries need. Traoré has praised China for investing in roads, schools, and hospitals that create jobs and boost growth. China's non-interference policy means it doesn't meddle in African politics, which Traoré says makes it a better partner than the US. For example, China offers duty-free access to goods from 33 of Africa's least developed countries, including Burkina Faso. This helps African businesses sell more and earn more. Traoré believes this approach is helping Africa build a stronger, more independent future. China's trade framework is a huge deal, and Traoré is excited about its potential. By signing up 53 African nations, China is giving African exports tariff-free access to its massive market. This means African businesses can sell goods like coffee, cocoa, and minerals to China without extra taxes, which boosts their economies. Traoré sees this as a way for Burkina Faso to grow its agriculture and mining sectors. For example, in Cairo, China and Egypt signed deals to trade and invest in yuan, cutting out the dollar. Countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and Angola are also joining yuan-based trade. Nigeria has a $15 billion yuan swap deal with China, letting them trade directly. Traoré is pushing Burkina Faso to join these deals to strengthen its economy and reduce reliance on the West. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa is a big part of this story, and Traoré supports its mission. BRICS wants a world where the US dollar isn't the only currency that matters. South Africa and Egypt, both BRICS members, are leading Africa's shift to yuan-based trade. Ethiopia and Uganda, connected to BRICS, are following. Algeria and Nigeria, two of Africa's biggest economies, have been invited to join BRICS. If they do, BRICS could include Africa's top 4 economies, giving the continent a louder voice in global finance. Traoré sees BRICS as a way for Africa to stand up to Western control and build a fairer system. He's encouraging Burkina Faso to deepen ties with BRICS to support this shift. China's approach to Africa is unique, and Traoré is a big fan. While Western countries have historically focused on extracting resources like oil or diamonds, China builds partnerships based on African needs. For example, China has invested billions in infrastructure like roads, railways, and ports across Africa. In Burkina Faso, China is helping build schools and hospitals, creating jobs and improving lives. Traoré says this is what makes China different. It listens to African leaders and supports their goals. Through initiatives like the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, China aligns its investments with Africa's development plans, like the African Union's Agenda 2063, which aims to make Africa a global powerhouse by 2063. Let's zoom in on Angola, where China is making a big impact. Angola relies heavily on oil, which makes up 50% of its economy and 90% of its exports. But oil is risky as the world moves away from fossil fuels. China is helping Angola diversify with a $350 million investment in agriculture. A Chinese company, CITIC, is spending $250 million to develop 100,000 acres of farmland for soybeans and corn. They're also building a seed research center to improve crop yields. Traoré sees this as a model for Burkina Faso, where farming is a key industry. He's exploring similar deals with China to boost Burkina Faso's agriculture, reduce reliance on food imports, and create jobs for young people. While China invests in Africa, the US is pulling back, and Traoré isn't happy about it. Under Donald Trump's America First policy, the US has focused on tariffs, cutting foreign aid, and closing diplomatic missions in Africa. For example, the US imposed 30% tariffs on South Africa and 50% on Lesotho, hurting their ability to sell goods. Traoré says this shows the US doesn't care about Africa's growth. In contrast, China is opening its markets and building infrastructure. Traoré points out that while the US raises barriers, China builds bridges, making it a better partner for Africa's future. Africa's trust in China is growing, and Traoré is helping lead this shift. Many Africans feel the West, especially the US, doesn't treat them as equals. The US's support for controversial policies, like Israel's actions in Gaza, has damaged its image in Africa. Traoré has spoken out against what he calls Western bullying, saying China offers a better deal. Unlike Western aid, which often comes with demands for political changes, China's investments have no strings attached. Traoré's push for yuan-based trade and CIPs is resonating across Africa, making China a popular partner. From Burkina Faso to Nigeria, Africans see China as a friend who respects their sovereignty. Traoré's vision goes beyond trade. It's about making Africa self-reliant. He wants Burkina Faso to produce its own food, process its own resources, and control its own economy. For example, by nationalizing gold mines, Traoré is ensuring that Burkina Faso's wealth stays in the country. He's also working with China to build factories and train workers, creating jobs for young people. Traoré believes that by partnering with China and using CPS, Africa can build a financial system that works for Africans, not Western banks. His leadership is inspiring a new generation of African leaders to dream big and take bold steps. Traoré's leadership is especially inspiring to Africa's youth, who make up a huge part of the continent's population. Over 60% of Africans are under 25, and Traoré, being young himself, connects with them. He's encouraging young people to get involved in agriculture, technology, and trade to build Africa's future. China's investments like training programs and new schools are helping young Africans gain skills. Traoré sees this as key to reducing unemployment and making Africa a global leader. By supporting China's trade framework, Traoré is creating opportunities for the next generation to thrive. The US dollar's dominance is fading, and Traoré is helping Africa prepare for this change. The US can print dollars endlessly, which causes inflation and makes money less valuable. Traoré warns that this is risky for Africa, as it depends on dollars for trade. Alternatives like gold, Bitcoin, and the Chinese yuan are gaining traction. China's push for the yuan, backed by leaders like Traoré, is creating a new financial order. By using CIPs, African countries can avoid Western sanctions and trade freely. Traoré believes this is the key to Africa's economic freedom and long-term stability. This shift is creating new opportunities, especially in digital assets. Upexi Inc., traded on Nasdaq as UPEXI, is a company to watch. They're a brand owner now focusing on crypto, particularly Solana, a fast-growing blockchain. Upexi holds over 1.9 million Solana tokens, worth $120 million, making them the largest public company holder of Solana. They're staking these tokens to earn $7 million a year in passive income. This is a chance for investors to get into crypto through a trusted company. Traoré's push for financial independence aligns with this trend, as digital assets like Solana could play a role in Africa's future. Check Upexi's investor presentation in the description, but always do your own research. Moving away from the dollar isn't easy, and Traoré knows it. The US is fighting to keep its currency on top, with Trump threatening 100% tariffs on countries that ditch the dollar. These tariffs could hurt African economies, but Traoré says the risks are worth it for long-term freedom. By using CIPs into yuan, African nations can avoid these threats and build stronger economies. Traoré's leadership is helping Burkina Faso and others navigate this challenge, showing that Africa can stand up to Western pressure and chart its own path. Africa is on the rise, and Traoré and China are leading the way. With a young population, growing economies, and vast resources, Africa is set to become a global powerhouse. China's investments in infrastructure, agriculture, and technology are helping, and Traoré's push for financial independence is inspiring change. From Burkina Faso's gold mines to Angola's farms, Africa is taking control of its future. Traoré's vision is clear: Africa can be a leader, not a follower, in the new global order. His leadership is showing that Africa has the potential to shape the world. This shift affects everyone, whether you're in Africa or elsewhere. As the yuan grows, global trade and prices will change. For investors, it's a chance to explore markets like crypto or African businesses growing with China's help. For everyone else, it's a sign that Africa is becoming a major player. Traoré's vision and China's partnership are making this happen. Stay informed and don't miss out on the opportunities this creates. I'm super excited about Africa's future, and Ibrahim Traoré is a big reason why. His bold leadership is showing that Africa can stand up to the West and build a new financial system with China's help. From Burkina Faso to Angola, Africa is growing stronger. Traoré's work is inspiring a new generation to dream big and take charge. If you want to learn more about China's role in Africa, check out our other articles linked below. Thanks for watching, and let's keep talking about why Africa is the future.